Like, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff. Help promote and rank up my channel. So we're here to review Fear Street Part 2, 1978, starring Sadie Sink, Emily Rudd, Ryan Simpkins. The second entry to a trilogy that releases like soon after each other. These are based off R.L. Stine books, and you can check out my review of the first movie I was less than impressed with. Comment down below. Let me know your thoughts on that first one as we get into this second one, and let me know your thoughts on this second one. If you've seen it yet, if you intend to, or have you given up after the first one. Let's go ahead and talk about the positives. So the positives on this one of the biggest selling points of these films is that it's set in this time, or that time. Which, does it actually hold up to that? Does it feel authentic? Does it feel real? I think so, more so on this one than the 1994 one, because the 1994 one felt like modern kids doing a stand-in and giving their version of what they think the 90s is. Whereas this one feels much more authentic. But I grew up in the 90s. It was easy to call that kind of stuff out. I did not, however, grow up in the 70s. So, is this more authentic? I do think it feels that way with the clothing, with the way they talk. You kind of got the hippie girl character, and then just the location, the atmosphere, the set dressing is pretty convincing. And once again, they give you one hell of a soundtrack. But I do think and feel that this is more convincing than the first one. This one does feel more 70s, but the kind of setting is more of an 80-ish horror film than anything. But it does immediately elevate itself above the first one with adding a lot more to lore and mythology established, really fleshing it out, filling in a lot of blanks, while still being ambiguous, being able to be a mystery that has to unfold and unravel over the course of the movie. You get so much more in here than I felt that you got in that 1994 one. There are a couple of laughs in here that are pretty good. I didn't find the first one funny at all. This one's I didn't find too funny either, but my sister's in the toilet really got me. We get to see like Sheriff Nick Good when he's young, and he's kind of a likable person. And you've got the sisters, C. Berman and Ziggy. You've got one that's the goody girl, which I actually find more likable. I'm a bit surprised most people are saying that they like the Ziggy character way more. Sadie Sink character, who portrays her much more, because she's just like this foul-mouthed firecracker off the wall, doesn't take nobody's shit, but sure as hell gets a lot has to take a lot of shit, and she kind of bonds with the sheriff. They do share a connection that's interesting, and Nick is obviously concerned with living up to people's expectations of him becoming a sheriff. You've got the Sadie Sink character, Ziggy, who just feels like everybody from Shadyside is doomed. Like, explosive, emotionally, expressively. Sister C. Berman, who's really mature, responsible, tries to do the right thing. That's the character I tended to gravitate more toward in this movie. Her daughter is one of the characters, one of the killers we've seen before. That story there is really fascinating, and I kind of wish that they would do a spin-off movie on that story there. It takes its time and the initiative to properly set up, establish this connection between all these various characters, the relationships, and the mystery of Sarah Fear as it gradually starts to unravel it. And it just feels for a more built-up, earned experience this time around. Doesn't really get into the horror, the kills, the chills, thrills, all that stuff until the third act. It's mostly mystery, intrigue, and build-up for a payoff. When it does get bloody and gory, it does look quite good, quite believable. However, the negatives on this one. This is a cliche camp slasher film, complete with obnoxious over-the-top bullies that go to cringe lengths to sell it early on. You've got your sex, drugs, stoners, complete with an axe-wielding maniac killing blink and you'll miss it, extra characters we never knew and don't give a damn about. And it wouldn't be bad if those kills had been done in a creative or inventive way. They should be, if it's not characters that we dislike enough to thirst for the death of, or if it's not characters we care about enough to fear the death of. Much like the 1994 one, it has a great soundtrack. It does some really good songs, but it beats you over the head with it. The first half of the film, maybe even more than the first half of the film, every short scene has a song from the times to introduce it, to the point of overkill. There are inconsistencies with the character. Sydney telling Ziggy, "You've changed, you're not my sister," when later revealed it's Sydney that's the one that's changed. It also seems out of character for Ziggy to go try to save someone that went to great lengths to torture her. The film doesn't get horror until almost the third act. It's in the third act, it just all falls apart. There's a lot of build up, and there's nothing wrong with that, but what follows just fails to stick the landing. Characters sit and talk about their feelings after nearly being killed by an axe-wielding maniac who may or may not be dead, but is under a supernatural curse, under supernatural influence, and rather than just take what they have to end the curse right away, everybody has to have a stupid moment to express themselves, talk about their feelings until the obvious happens. Emotionally manipulative filler. And though the majority of the film is a cliche, the third act forcefully tries to subvert your expectations to surprise you. Just walking you through a timeline backwards has really cornered them. It's just full of sloppy, flimsy conveniences in that third act that undermine the entire damn film. That third act really destroys almost the entire film. You had a pretty solid build-up, but the third act, it just falls to pieces. I give this film a 5 out of 10. Some people will say the other one's better. Some people will say this one's better. I personally think they have just different strengths and weaknesses and come out about the same, while the first one has very flimsy characters. Not that this one doesn't, but this one adds a lot more to characters that are in it. It adds a lot more to mythology and lore established in the first one, and it still maintains the mystery, keeps it alive, whereas the first one was very vague and very flimsy characters. It got to the thrill, kills, and chills a lot faster than this one, whereas this one takes its time to slowly get there, but ultimately it falls apart in the third act just like the other one did. These films aren't really impressing me or doing a great job. They have a lot of problems, and I'm very curious, since they do both share one consistent problem, the soundtrack, beating you over the head with songs from the time. I'm very curious to see if they can keep that going with the 1666 movie that they're gonna do, if they can beat us over the head with a soundtrack from the times. Let me know your thoughts and opinions. I do think this one is slightly better in terms of character and story. A great start. If you would have started this with this one, you wouldn't have to do the stupid things you did here with the subverting expectations and the conveniences. You wouldn't have to do a lot of that, and you had a better story. You had characters with more to them than the 1994. So let me know your thoughts and opinions. Fake good one here. Eventually we will like, subscribe, comment.